Welcome to this year's Leadership Conference. I'm sort of playing Ed McMahon to Randy's Johnny Carson this year, but I sort of feel a little bit like the lady at the beginning of a church service who tells everybody about the potluck and who left their lights on. This is just a little bit of information about how the day is going to go. We filmed 3 different episodes. Each one has multiple segments, and they'll be interspersed with commercials. Now, there are commercials, so no McDonald's or Verizon or anything like that. But that's how the format's going to go, and obviously you can watch them in any order you like. They are 1, 2, and 3, but you certainly can watch them in the order you'd like. Compared to a full day, 7, 8 hours, 185 slides typically, as Randy likes to say, we really did have to pare down, and it was a little challenging for Randy to come up with a few topics, so we had to cherry pick. It's hopefully the things you're interested in hearing about will be in these episodes. If not, there's lots of ways for you to find out. Number one, you can check out our website, and this year's website will have a lot more on it, kitchen pages and whatnot, ways for you to find out about things you're interested in, and reach out. Talk to me, talk to Randy, anybody that you see during these episodes is be happy to talk to you about a project maybe we didn't mention or that we just touched on that you would like to know more about. So feel free to reach out, talk to us anytime. The other thing is, this is homeschool year, which seems sort of appropriate considering the situation. And what that means is some of the information we'll be relaying to you, we'll just touch on. This is happening, this project is going on. If you want to know more detail, Randy may give you a homeschool assignment. That assignment will use our website. So you'll need to go to the Leadership Conference, the page where you got this link to get to this episode, and links to everything we're going to talk about will be there. Places you can go to research more, including store tiles or other web pages or flyers that normally you would get in a handout packet when you come to our conference. So we hope that you will participate in that way so that you'll get more out of it than even just listening to us. So, without further ado, we'll get started.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to CU Answers 2020 Leadership Conference. It is my pleasure to welcome our fearless leader and CEO, Randy Carnes.
Thank you, Tony. 10 years, I still haven't got used to that. I'm really happy that you're with us today. A little bit different idea. We're going to shoot a couple episodes, and it's going to be a video and a lot of fun things today, but it'll be hard to figure this out. Is this going to be a cheap knockoff of 5 years of great leadership conferences and packed rooms and a couple hundred people out there for me to make eye contact with and easily roll with the flow? Because cameras just don't smile back. They don't frown. They don't get upset. And so it's not easy for me. I can't even swear at a camera. All right, what do you do with that? But I hope it's not a knockoff. I hope it's going to be an interesting one that maybe will start another 10 years of different kinds of leadership formats. Now, you could say the same thing about 2020. The year started with such a fantastic vision of all these things that we were going to do. Our 50th anniversary, boom. And here we are. Is 2020 going to flex back to normal? Or are we just going to get back to normal and it'll just be business as usual? Or, is it going to be different for a long, long time? I think the future is always different. It's just that sometimes we move towards the future in such small steps. And, the weather changes. The weather is in, the weather's out. We just get used to it. This year is going to be an interesting one. I think there's going to be echoes for years, and hopefully there'll be echoes from this leadership conference going forward. Now, I thought about this morning. It's like, holy cow, we're going to the leadership conference. I'm going to come here, we're going to film, we're going to do all these different things. And I felt like a kid in a roller coaster. I really did. And and then I thought, well, what about everybody else in the room? And it's like, everything that's happening in 2020, it's like, do I get on the ride? Do I hang back from the ride? Am I excited for the ride? And I can't wait to burst in there, sit down and ride that roller coaster. Or am I, well, maybe I don't want to do this. And so all year long, people have been punting. And it's a sad thing for me. In essence, you cancel, and you get used to canceling, and you get used to canceling, and pretty soon there's a tone that the future's canceled. We're not going to talk about that today. We're going to move on to some new things. We're going to jump on that roller coaster and we're going to think about 21, 22. Now, canceling has a lot to do with your personal attitude. And the big thing that they tell business leaders to do in a crisis is not to shoot yourself in the foot. Because the thing about it is, it has a lot to do with your optimism or your pessimism. But you can't predict the future. Now, people who are optimistic, they just jump in the car and they just drive 100 miles an hour towards a future they're sure is going to be here. And by the time they look up, they went down the wrong street on the wrong drive. Pessimists do the same thing. They actually put the car in reverse, run into the back of the garage, and their business plan is derailed by a fender bender. What we have to do is be balanced. The right amount of pessimism and optimism, move ahead, look around, reassess, slow down, speed up, but go forward. Every one of you, I promise, the only thing ahead of you is the future. Unless you turn your back on it, and then when this is all over, your organization will be further behind than it might have been before you even started. We got to think forward, forward, forward. But it's going to be hard. A month ago, I would come to the office and all people wanted to talk about is COVID. What did the governor say? And what did this? And what school's doing this? And how's this working? And this and this and this. And we talked about the world. That's not our mission today. Our mission is not to talk about the world. Our mission is to talk about our credit unions, our co-ops, our members, where we're going, what we're doing, and how we're going to get it done. So let's zero in a little bit and just think about those things, all right? As we look forward to the other side of this whole thing and the investments we've made, we've been making some amazing investments. I can't wait to talk about them. Those investments cannot be put so far out of our minds that we never get around to getting the return. So we need to move along and make this thing work today. How do you make it work? Simple. It's the 3 steps for being successful in a co-op. Do valuable things, good things will happen. It's that simple. You give it to a guy like Jeff Johnson, who is our COO and president, and you just say, Jeff, inundate us with value. Just find valuable things to do and don't worry about it, just plan to go forward. Then you turn to Bob Frizzle, our CFO, and you say, Bob, find me money to do valuable things. Now, when Bob came here, he came here like an accountant. And I'm not saying anything bad about accountants, but accountants plan on counting money, keeping money, doing all those things. But Bob came with an open heart to saying, I'll do what's valuable for credit unions and credit union members. So he had to find money to do valuable things. You put those 2 things together with one simple idea, a CEO that can match vision for the people who own the joint. Know who you work for and why. Put it all together, you got a very simple riddle. Let's get busy and do some valuable things. That's where we are today. All right, let's get this thing started. Well, hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
We're so used to you. For 20 years, I've seen you just right over there by
Yeah,
safety
kind
blanket.
of anonymous.
Right.
Behind the scenes lady.
I know, and people could see the side of your face a little
That's
bit.
about it. Yep.
You're
Top of my
directing.
head.
You make a good-looking Ed McMahon.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, much better than Ed did. All right, well, let's get started. This, well, as I said earlier, 2020 is a strange year. On March 23rd, our governor threw our whole state a curveball. I'm sure it's through many of your states a curveball too. And everything that we were planning to do in 2020, like tons of Diet Coke on a caffeine high, on March 23rd changed. And we all had to say, what are we gonna do? It's just, the government announcement just changed everything, all right? And we had to shift, and for me, it was like someone poured a bunch of lemons into my plan. It just like, all of a sudden, and I really don't know if I like lemonade. I'm diabetic, and I'm not supposed to eat a lot of sugar or drink a lot of sugar, either one. So my world was upside down. I wasn't really sure what to do. And you look at it, and you and I, it's like this thing we're doing here. Every year we shoot a leadership conference, But we shoot it, we do it live.
Live, yeah.
Right. And I always think I'm a better actor than I am. So I have these skits and these things, and we get started, and pretty soon after a while, that stuff kind of gets pushed out as content pushes in.
Yeah.
All right? So you start to make lemonade out of lemons, and you start squeezing them and thinking about how you're going to do. And so it was a weird year for you. We started writing a business plan again in March. Generally, we write a business plan together in August, and if you don't know, Dawn is she makes my language sound palatable to the common person, the smarter person, almost everyone, all right? So we started rewriting plans, and we moved on with it. And then we started thinking, it's like, what do you do, all right? For us, it was get people out of the building. We have about 300 people that come to our offices a day, and we had to say, go away, all right? But we kind of stopped. We didn't do it right away. As a matter of fact, everybody was kind of unhappy. It was like, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go. And I said, well, we gotta wait down here. We gotta have a plan. We gotta have an orderly thing. We all have to stop right now because fear is toxic. So we had to slow everybody down and say, okay, how are we gonna do this with our customers, teammates, leadership, vendors, everything? And we looked around, and what was interesting on March 23rd was on March 24th, restaurants had to close. They were all planning to drink a lot of Diet Coke, serve a lot of Diet Coke, and take care of things. And it was going to be spring soon, and we were all going to have a good time. And now they were gone. And they had basically overnight to figure it out. We were a lot luckier. We were an essential employer, and so we had a couple of weeks to think it out. And so we went forward, all right? But that restaurant thing became a rallying call for us. And we wrote Project Restaurant. Right. Now, I think about it, I remember, I'm getting old, and in 1994, it was like, what would we do if the power went out? I mean, it was amazing. The power might go out. And since then, we have generators, and we have all these things. And then we said, well, what would happen if the computer went down? Okay? And then we started buying computers. We had 2 computers in the same room, and computer A could roll over to computer B, and we thought we were so great. It was called, a high availability under the covers of 2 computers. And then we went under the roof. Oh no, it was under the roof first. Then we went out of the building, in the network, and all these things. And we started kind of getting excited about high availability and business resumption. And we had staff, and we got really good at the people thing. We know how to do a failover, a rollover, everything else. But this was so different because we had to say, what do you do when people go away? And we all already had pandemic plans, Well, if Martians ever last on, Martians, pandemics seemed so far away to us.
Right.
It wasn't like they're going to happen every day. You couldn't even imagine them. We had theory, right? But not how to get 300 people. Well, we would try to get 200 people out of the building.
Right.
All right? And we had to do it in an orderly fashion. We wondered what we were going to buy. I remember Bob and I thinking about our business plan. Is this going to be 6-digit tech investment out of the blue? What are we going to do? How are we going to run it in an orderly way? So we had to do something. And then we said, once we get them all out of the building, how will we get them back? Well, we started looking around for just inspiration. What were restaurants planning? What were they doing? They were our inspiration, not to whine. Just get on with it, okay? Coming back, though, one day I noticed that Amazon had got one person sick, and they shut down the entire factory. And they cleaned it. Then they brought everybody back the next day. And I thought, well, what happens if that's like every other day? Excuse me. And so we used Project Amazon as the as the inspiration for how we'd work when people got sick. Because for all this time, we'd worked with sick people forever.
Oh, sure.
How many times did I come in your office and say,
Not feeling very good today.
Yeah.
Well, I got work to do.
I know, and it's like, you didn't kick me out or anything.
No,
you simply said, well, I hope I don't get it. All right? You have a lot of things in your office for when I come in there, breath mints,
Right.
and all these things to make sure that you can survive me. All right? And then we started saying, well, how will we, when people get sick, how will we report that? How will people tell us about getting sick? How will we track the case studies? And we started worrying about the government because the government started getting everybody time off and promised that we'd get our money back. But Bob started Project Clawback and documenting and doing things about that fight down the road to get our money back. And then we finally got around to writing Back to the Future. And Back to the Future was exactly that, Back to the Future, because in the future, we were going to have a new kind of business resumption plan that we've never had. We were going to have a people plan.
Right. Something we didn't have when we started.
And then we started thinking about how to sell that people plan. Now, along that line, this is a talk show. I have props. So we started thinking about these workplace templates, and you can find these on the website you already mentioned. And we started saying, what would it be like to have a green light here for all of our people to be in the building? And then we started to move down here where 90% of the people were out of the building, okay? And then finally, back to a green light. And we started wondering how we would quantify these things. And so every day we started taking census. And census, this is a funny thing, we're a bunch of techies. As a matter of fact, even when we're in the building, sometimes we don't actually interact that much. It's like I never ever once thought to ask you what time you come to the office. I don't know if you're there until I walk down, and if you're not there,
You just wait.
I wait, all right? And then I don't know when people go home. In all reality, I've never denied a single vacation day.
No?
I've had a blessed life as a supervisor. I have many supervisors that worry if they have butts and seats, but we've always been a very independent firm. So to take census, to actually take attendance and know where people are, was a different thing for us. Now, you think, with Asterisk Intelligence and everything that we do with trending, we would have graphs like this all over the place about our people. This top line here, this is currently where all our employees are. It's the remote line. And you can see things like this spike here where we actually said, let's pretend no one can come to work. And so the blue line are the people in the office. Down these two lines here are just PTO and people that are out given some of the new kinds of, I guess PTO benefits, they're new, government and those kind of things. And we started charting this by day. Our goal was to get down to less than 100 people in a 24 hours in our offices. So we have 3 to 4 offices. We counted everyone and we said no more than 100 in a 24-hour period. Far below the concepts of occupancy and the things the government was trying to talk to us about. Now we wanted to track this, and we have all this track now, not for the government long term, but to quantify, just like we do with the computer. Is this a rollover, a planned event, people are rolling out, or is this a failover? Out of the blue, we're excited. We all gotta go. How quickly can we get out of the building? How quickly can we get back to work, be productive, and make things happen? So for us, this was just, it wasn't anything other than an investment in what we were gonna talk to people about for the next 10 years. And hopefully, the owners of our QSO will see it that way. And as a matter of fact, we even started talking, can you imagine in a demo with a new prospect, and they say, well, how'd you do during COVID? Roll out the documentation, roll out the trend lines, roll out all those things and say, here's how we got out of the building, here's how we got back into the building, and we don't have to have a pandemic to get that going, all right? Now in all of that, that seems very nice. Boom, oh, Randy, you're gonna have a pandemic plan. Well, I already have a pandemic plan, Randy. Yeah, but yours is theory, ours is managed and documented. We learned that from Y2K. During Y2K, remember back then, we finished Y2K. The NCUA came in, Price Waterhouse came in. We were the smallest data processor to be audited during Y2K, something I was very proud of. But we were a co-op, so we were owned by credit unions, and we were perceived to be a risk to credit unions, so it was a double whammy, and they came in. They gave us very high marks during Y2K, and I'll come back to why I talk about Y2K a little bit later. But they gave us very high marks, and I was so proud. We didn't charge a single credit union. We didn't do it. We did it all on ourselves, and everything was done and documented. They said, you guys did a great job. I love all this stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then we got around to the exit interview. And in the exit interview, they said, Randy, you did all this, but we don't see your plan. I said, well, you realize we're done. Yeah, you did a good job. But how did you know what to do if you didn't have a plan? Like everything with the NCUA, they think you have 40 years to get things done, and you have all this time. So you write a plan. Well, as a matter of fact, you have special planners, and you pay them a lot of money, and you do all of those kind of things. And it's just, did you have a plan to get here? Oh, well, I did. You should have saw. I had a plan to get it from the hotel this morning. I just got him. I had it all written out, and I got in my car, and I got to your office, Randy. The one thing I knew that wasn't going to happen through the COVID exercise, and when we got into this business resumption for people and a real pandemic plan, we were going to have a plan. We, to nauseam, I've been sending out emails to people, and I'm, here's our Back to the Future, here's our Project Amazon. But we put all those documents together because later this year, you, not me, get to take all of this stuff and make it look like a plan. All right? And a whole new generation of leaders at CU Answers are going to see how to build an asset that will last us for decades. All right? And then not only did we see our plan, we started collecting other people's plans. And one of the things I hope everybody does in our network is find a way to turn what seems like wasted effort, these lemonade, these things pounding on your head, ruining your plan, keeping you from drinking Diet Coke. And you know how grouchy I get. But from that standpoint, can you make it an asset for a long-term value? So that's been pretty exciting. Go ahead. Now, let's talk about the Spirit of CU Answers Award, okay? And you all know, and you can read it, there's let's see, 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. There's a little prompter here in front of me. It helps me stay on track. This year, for me, the Spirit of CU Answers Award is related to two major things. Credit unions that exhibit strong execution and performance, especially in the face of adversity, all right? And I wish I would have thought, because I'd send them all a shirt with a lemon on their chest. I didn't.
Yeah, we can still do that. We got lots of time.
Yeah, we've got lemonade shirts. And then has started a new initiative to really demonstrate the credit union spirit that moves industry in a positive direction, that inspiration to other credit unions. Seeing this as business resumption and putting an asset in your files on how you do this, that's the Spirit of CU Answers. And the winner is all the credit unions that volunteered their leaders to continue to drive our CUSO and our community. So if you think about CU Answers, CU South, Northwest, Extend, Site 4, and many others, they all have boards. They all have leaders that were volunteered by their credit union, even in the worst of times, all the way through COVID. They stayed in there. They did their board meetings. They did those strategic things. They drove us to think bigger. They said, hey, this is just a blip. I appreciate those board of directors. I appreciate the credit unions that volunteer their hard work to us, and that's the Spirit of CU Answers Award for 2020. And now a word from our sponsors.
Right about now, there's a real feeling of thank goodness that our network had already invested in analyzing operational data and the trends of a 2 million member credit union community. On top of that, across the network, dozens of credit unions had already started their business intelligence and analytics efforts, and more were planning to start. Almost overnight, everyone started asking new questions. What's different about my operations now that my members are under a stay-at-home order? How are members adjusting to our lobbies being closed? What services are especially hot with the COVID-19 crowd? What does all of this mean to our internet retailing approaches for the future? We may not have all the answers to everything, but when it comes to CU questions, we're called CU Answers for a reason. We're here to help. We want to help. Let us help. See you soon. CU Answers.
What do you do when 70% of your teammates have to stop, think, reconfigure, and gear back up to get back into the game at full throttle? You take a breath. You're patient, and you rethink what is the proper pace for an entirely new future. At CU Answers, we were already feeling our clients struggle with the frantic pace at which we were releasing new software, feature modifications, and new business ideas into their world. The interruption of COVID-19 is a chance to reset and rethink the future ahead. 2020 and 2021 will still be big years for new products, features, and services, and our approach will be even more coordinated and thoughtful than ever before. Join us in building a future.
Well, welcome back, and thanks for that break. And we changed things up while you were away, and we brought on a couple of my partners. I think, and I sincerely mean that. I mean, it's a lot of times you hear partners, and you say, oh yeah, you work for the board, and they work for you, and all of that stuff. The truth is, these two gentlemen represent officers of the firm. And they don't get on camera enough, and they certainly haven't been on stage enough in the last 10 years for the credit they should get. And so we're going to do this a little bit differently today. I do think in a serious year like this, we should talk to the officers. Amelia here, Bob Frizzle, CFO. We've been together a long time. How long?
Just hit 23 years.
Yeah.
And then before that, you were my vendor, so we've been together probably 25, 26 total.
Yeah, I've been blessed. I have never interviewed for an officer or someone for the executive council. We've kind of met them together. You were first, all right? And you, me, and Jody started this whole officer thing, but then we experienced people and we invited people to join our team.
Yep.
That brings us to Jeff. Jeff, how long have you been at CU Answers?
It's been 15 years in April, as a matter of fact. And like Bob, I was working at a credit union that was with CU Answers for 9 years before that.
And so this whole thing where we said Jeff was in charge of doing valuable things, finding valuable things for us to do, Bob finding the money to do those valuable things. Bob is a stellar money guy, and we've had to learn how to run a co-op together. You don't always trust my plans on the first blush.
Nor you mine.
Exactly. So we've had that whole thing, and then Jeff came in later, and we got some things done, and we've been doing an expansion of our team for a long time. I mean, think, 29 employees when we started, all right, 290 now, but then extends in the building and EDOC out in Vermont, and so it's a lot different. So when you think about 2021, we're going to jump ahead here, all right? Everybody's worried about 2021, and that's what we're talking about. This segment, we're talking about what we look like in 21. Are we serving lemonades, or are we back on track and drinking as much Diet Coke as we can and running as fast as we can? What do you think of 2021 when it comes from a financial perspective?
Well, I think there'll be three themes as I get the budget ready and prepare my comments for the board. The first being we're in this 2 steps forward, 1 step back stage. We've had some deconversions and some mergers, so getting used to running the business on our new footprint, if you will. The model's exactly the same, the credit unions we serve, but we're going to have a little bit less total membership as Scott and his sales team build that back. So one would be that new normal. The second, obviously, is our investment in Hawaii, and I know that you'll talk about that a lot more later. But as we really gear up and start to invest in the facility and get staffing out there, we'll feel that in 21. But we've been telling the shareholders for the last 2 years, get ready for it, it's coming, and it is coming. And then finally, the new revenue recognition standards will change our top line a little bit. It won't change the bottom line at all. It just lets us on some parts of the business net our cost of goods to our gross revenue. So you'll see a different net margin, but in the end, the bottom line won't be any different. So I do expect 21 to be a little different than 20, but all things considered, very, very similar.
Well, the hard part with that is you didn't mention COVID. So is there the COVID impact that we're feeling right now? We don't know how long that's going to go on.
Correct, and we're a little, well, we're very, very fortunate in the fact that the COVID experience hasn't impacted us as dramatically as it has many other businesses. I say that because we're still open, we're still running our core businesses, our credit unions are still being served. So financially, COVID hasn't taken quite the sting to us as it has many businesses in the country. As we look into 2021, assuming that the direct effects of COVID start to level out, I don't see COVID being a big change to us other than it may delay some investment. So what I mean by that is we've really worked hard to train a remote workforce. So we probably are running roughly 25% of our staff on any given day is in the office, 75% is now running remote from their homes or other places. If we can keep using that strategy and delay any local facilities expansion as we continue to grow, then we have a lot of new things in our playbook that will help change our financial picture and our physical footprint into 21 and beyond. So I think there's a lot we're learning from COVID that we can put to good use.
Yeah, but that kind of learning, it's so impromptu. Are you a little bit, it's one thing to push everybody out and kind of put an asterisk in there and say what happens, happens. But now when we think about remote long-term and maybe even to the point where we don't have to pay for investments and those kind of things, what do you think we have to learn to be permanent, have a higher level of remote? We were only at about 9% of our staff only nine
bodies out of 280.
Out of
correct.
remote.
Yes.
What does it mean if all of a sudden we wanted to crank that up to 30% remote?
Well, we have a lot, we've been doing a lot and have a lot more to go. For us, one of the big things is data security. Once we get that workforce remote, how can we certify to ourselves and our network that that data is just as safe as it was contained within our four walls today? Those kinds of approaches are where we're spending quite a bit of time and looking for third parties to come in and do some reviews to the point where we want to start to have certified remote workforce. We want to make sure that the areas of their home that they have segregated for their office, the access to the data, what can be leaked is all known, and there's a process. So I think there's a lot of work going on now to enable us to be professional remote workforce in the future.
I remember I had a lot of conversations with employees. Oh, boss, we know how to work remote. We work remote here, we work remote here, we work remote here. And it was really kind of just expected that they would get it all right. And I think about when you send a person to the space station for a year and the mental work they have to do to stay remote for a long time. And so I look forward to our investments. You see any major investments we haven't made that we're going to have to make in 21 related to this kind of high availability?
I think it'll be more of a continuation. We certainly made some investments in our licensing and infrastructure for that volume of remote work. I think that, again, as we start to make it a certified process, we'll continue some of that investment to get what we're comfortable with and what our industry auditors, the IT auditors, are comfortable with to have that remote workforce. And then I think we can get to an idle after that. So I'm not expecting hundreds of thousands of dollars investment, but tens of thousands, I think, to round out what we would like to learn from this and put into practice.
Sounds pretty positive, without putting words in your mouth, like I always try to, all right? Any apprehension about moving forward with the investments we had planned for, like Vegas and those kind of things, or any reason that I should step off the gas?
I truly don't think so. I think the benefits that we expect from the investments in Vegas and expanding Tier 4 and opening up parts of the country far outweigh the risk of doing it in the COVID era. So I think that we're well positioned for it. We've been planning this for 2 years. We have certainly excess dividends and earnings that we can put to use and help enhance all of our futures. So I think the time is still good, and we may get lucky, and if real estate gets a little depressed for 6 months post-COVID, we could get that to our advantage in a lease. So I think it's full speed ahead.
You mentioned dividends. We do anything special at mid-year?
Right now, my prediction would be we will be able to equal last year's distribution, timing-wise, like I said, if the board chooses to do any kind of interim. But by the end of the year, I do believe we would be able to at least meet last year's distributions.
And that's based more on people canceling on us than us canceling big plans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, cool. Let's switch to Jeff. All right. You've been learning, Bob and I, we have a fairly static life. I come to work and I pretty much play by myself and dream up, and I'm dreaming the same either way, all right? Bob sits across the hallway from me, and he has a little bit more outside world influence about what he's doing, but we're kind of enjoying the quiet time. That's terrible, but I got to get back out of the office because I can't stare at Bob anymore. But I think for you've got a couple hundred people wondering what to do and all those things. For a COO, explain what you do a little bit as a COO.
So for my role as a COO at CU Answers, it's really, I feel like, coordinating the dance between the different teams. We have folks on the road from a technical standpoint, conversion coordination, education, training, and even some of the tool set development, and a lot of that work also revolves around sales. So welcoming new folks to the network, and then post that welcome and out canvassing for more. So as you talk about being out on the road or out on the street, it's a very different time. The positive news from an organization, or from my perspective, is we've laid the foundation in the last couple of years. We've talked a lot about presence over video. Last year we did 3 million minutes of that. That was not expecting COVID just around the corner. That was saying, here's something that we're good at and we're getting used to and we're comfortable with, and making it part of our day. Not
So
saying
we were already on the track to be Zoom kind of certified, Zoom ready. And what do you mean by present over video?
So the POV, or presence over video, is utilization of a tool like Zoom, where we sit down in very specific venues, an event location, not quite as nice as this, but something like a shoot or a session, where we have a restricted room, special mics, special cameras, special television, second screen, so the team is ready to come in, check their laundry list of mic work, am I dressed properly for the day, and ready to go, whether that's demoing in an interactive session, a one-on-one training, or simply some on-call support. So we've made many steps in the evolution the last couple of years, even on the conversions, where we used to have folks on site post a live week. We now support that via Zoom in office for a week, where the session is open and all the client has to do is click, and there's somebody face-to-face, real-time screen sharing for a solution.
Because the world was really heading towards more and more remote, more and more, get rid of the travel, and just be real work. We're on webinars almost every single day of the year.
Absolutely. All the events, the venues within the office are busy, even more so now, with those sales, service, and support and training events. Credians are used to it. We don't want to say this is where we're going, period. It's just another arrow in the quiver as far as how we bring those solutions to the marketplace.
And that's really, even Las Vegas had more of a plan to be an innovation, remote studio, online, connecting the world kind of focus. So this really came to us at a good time, at least for us. Not a good time for the world or people or any of those things, but it's pretty easy to make lemonade out of these lemons.
Yeah, I think the timing was good on our Vegas planning and our homework. And as we've discussed also within the office, it will be a regional center. So as we look to sales and service, training, et cetera, people will be able to get there easier on the southwest, at least of the continental U.S., and even the folks coming in from Hawaii, as we talked about expanding our environment and having those hands-on. So we'll have sales resources in that region. They may drive more frequently than they did in the past, just as we get back to the events and things open up.
Well, you've had some conversions during this shutdown. So we've had teammates that had to go out and experience hotels.
Absolutely. Dining in, not flying on airlines, driving, face coverings, things along those lines. So it's been working directly with our Credians, our new partners, on how they wish us to be present in the office and what that looks like. Is it a closed lobby? Is it an open venue? What does the drive-through only look like? We've had 2 conversions. We have a 3rd one coming up shortly. Very successful, but a different environment with closed lobbies and face masks on for sure.
Well, that kind of helps sometimes because you take out a conversion process guide and the first thing you don't remember to look at planning, everybody just says call travel agent, go online, do whatever. Now you have to rethink even getting ready to go somewhere. As a matter of fact, I'm leaving here tomorrow and I have an 11-hour drive to South Dakota. So how do your people respond to, employees want to be efficient, which I always hate, me and efficiency. I just, oh God, you're working, But they worry about that. And is it effective to drive and all? What did you notice about employees and their their drive to get the work done?
Well, I think there's two items to answer that question. Item number one is we had already laid the foundation. We started about a new group provider in the East, in the Pennsylvania marketplace, and all of that work was planned to be done remotely. So we were challenging all the traditional conversion, support, training, and implementation process and procedures that we had in place and are very successful for the traditional events.
You kind of slipped that in. So everybody knows about CU Northwest and CU South, but you're saying we're going to have another group provider?
We do have another group provider out in the Pennsylvania marketplace. My CU Services is their branding today, and that is looking at a group of approximately 60 credit unions
Who are going to join the CU-based community.
who coming onto the network through a group provider, as you said, like Northwest and South. A little bit different, but a fairly similar experience. But the process and procedure there, as we talk about challenging the traditionals, we'll be doing 4 to 5 conversions in a given week over several months to move through the entire process and portfolio. So everybody had to take their usual playbooks, tear them up, and kind of start over as far as that's concerned. So back to scratch, and that helped in my mind because many people were pushing back very hard internally when we started the conversation. We don't do it that way, we've never done it that way, but that knocked down a lot of walls. So as we come into the last 90 days of non-traditional, people were like, oh, heck yeah, we've challenged these things, we're feeling better about it.
So our COVID resume is going to help with that project.
Absolutely, across the organization, whether it's technical folks, delivery folks, support, sales, or any points in between.
How do you see your teams when people are afraid, like we have another spat of COVID in the fall?
I think the teams, they've stepped up and are very open and direct as far as that's concerned. The folks have talked so much about teamwork. It is a very unique group. We talk about road time, almost family-like. And everybody's there, hey, how can I help, complement, what can I do? Here are my strengths, here's what my question is, and here's how I can come to the table with a comfortable solution. So from a business standpoint, I think people are, pessimistically optimistic. They're ready to go. They recognize what the business is that we do every day and how important our consistent deliverable is for our credit union partners and owners. And I've really felt them step up.
But we're not immune. We have team members that are
Absolutely.
nervous. We have team members that, they're saying, hey, I don't know about this home thing. The home thing seems to be working for me. But at the same time, sometimes our employees don't see that our volumes are down and we could be playing to a fall off in volume instead of our normal ramp volume. So any concerns about those people that are still hanging back a little as we head to 21?
No, I think there's going to be a group A, B, and C, as we've discussed. There's the group that's at home right now going, put me in, coach. I want to come back to the office right now. And we're saying, hey, wait, this is a controlled and this is a planned and process or procedural item that makes good business sense. There's group B that'll be on the list when the time comes, and there will be group C that's hanging back that we'll have to talk about, hey, now's the time. I welcome you here. I support you. What can I do to help? Even part of us getting out on the street. I flew to Texas last week. I drove to Pennsylvania for the conversion. It's time to be in the marketplace where they're open, be safe and be comfortable to get there, but be reasonable as far as the business expectations whenever our credit unions are ready to see us.
So the key is the three of us, we're pretty confident about 21, and we're looking at it. But at the same time, we have to be concerned about delinquency, portfolio performance, EFT activities, all those things that might end up having a longer hangover in the credit union business. I've signed quite a few credit memos, but we got to keep that, kind of listening for that pace and to help credit unions, all right? We'll talk the next segment with some of our business developers on the things that we've been doing since COVID, but I want to remind everybody in the audience that three of us are ready to help on their income statements with their balance sheets.
Absolutely.
All right?
Anytime.
Well, that ends at this part right here. We'll come back and we'll talk about some other things. Thank you both for 2020. Well, thank you for a long, long time. We're getting ready.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, Jeff's happy to be he still has his normal hair color. Bob and I have moved on.
Yeah, I've got my COVID cut going on right now.
Yeah, but you're both got healthy heads of hair, so that makes you one up on me. Let's go to our sponsors break.
Thank you much.
In a world where everybody is playing the odds, there are a lot of surprised people when low probability events burst onto the scene. Our community is ready for the everyday. Our community is ready for the once in a while. But when that once-in-a-century event happens, you have to get ready, fast, and drop the plans on the fly. We all had rough outlines about what to do during a pandemic, but by the end of the summer of 2020, we're going to have locked down how to respond to a pandemic with teams that have been there and done that. The CU Answers High Availability, Disaster Recovery, and Business Resumption Team will join your credit union team as one of the premier business resumption networks in the country. And together, we've got this. Some things just appear to be magic. Take a picture of a paper check, click a button, a couple of buttons, and presto changeo, there's money in your account. You just made a loan payment. You just opened a membership. You just started a relationship with a financial institution that will be with you for life. It's so much like magic, it's hard to get some members to get started. Maybe they're a bit resistant. Some don't take the time to notice the convenience of it all and don't want to change the way they do business with their credit union. It can be a slow slog toward the future. But then, like a bolt of lightning, they're facing the fact that their favorite credit union branch is now closed. Wouldn't it be cool to have a little magic to make all of that seem like no big deal? In the last 6 weeks, credit unions have been lining up to put a little magic in the hands of their members with Remote Deposit Capture, RDC. Are you behind the curve or up and running? Have you started your RDC program yet? Because we're ready to help you get started today.
Well, welcome back. And we're still here with Bob and Jeff, and we're going to talk about, sometimes it can be uncomfortable. We're going to talk about the resumes of our executives and the resume of our team and where we're going and how we think about our talent, okay? And people expect me to be optimistic. They're not sure about you two yet. I mean, think about what you're doing when you got a CEO changing and you got those things in a couple of years and, what are you thinking, Bob, and what are you thinking, Jeff, and are you competing, or are you competing with younger leaders that are here and all those things? We already said we were long in the tooth, and is that politically correct, long in the tooth? I don't know. I want to talk about Y2K and COVID, all right? Now, you think about, Bob, you were here during Y2K.
I was.
Yeah. And if you think about all the things that we learned during Y2K, we really were, we're like everybody else. We were it was a panic. Everybody's talking about it everywhere else, et cetera, et cetera. Some days I was panicked, and other days I thought, we got this. But we were a young team. We were a young team from the standpoint it really got started in 95, 96, and then we were a lot younger ourselves, okay? What new skills can you think about, like what happened to our confidence after Y2K? 2001 to what happened there?
Well, I thought it was very interesting. There's obviously some parallels you can draw COVID to Y2K. And as you just said, we were kind of a young executive team at the time. And I think then we were more about, in the beginning, the tactics of getting it done. And it was interesting because I was only 3 years removed from being at a credit union and getting into a technology provider and able to actually work with people who wrote the code and could actually define for me what the true problem was. And it took some of the stress off because I'm saying, so we just have to identify lines of code with a date formula, change the formula, and move on. And Jody made it so that it was a very practical, here's how we're going to attack it approach, and just laid out the tactics. So we weren't having the angst of people who didn't know anything that was going on, but we also maybe thought we were a little cooler than we were, and we didn't spend quite the time documenting. One of the biggest lessons learned in my mind was the exam that came post Y2K, when we were successfully through Y2K, and the weight of our plan didn't pass muster, not the fact that we did it successfully, or the plan was comprehensive. They chose not to read it, they just chose to weigh it. So I would tell the new executives coming up, and COVID is their opportunity to try and learn through a crisis, is the plan is important, not just get the work done, then organize the work, structure the work, document the work, so that everyone who comes to second guess you after the fact has that complete business record to look at. I think that was one of the things that taught us early in our executive career, and we've used that ever since.
I don't think that we planned as much during Y2K to get the lift we got afterward.
No,
we all
absolutely.
learned about that lift, and we're expecting that now.
Correct, absolutely.
I mean, I think the amount of time that we talk, the three of us talk about how to leverage what we're learning in COVID for the next decade, that comes directly from our confidence in Y2K.
And it has been a core of this institution since I came. Anything we go through, we try and learn from it, make it an asset of the firm that we can leverage well into the future. And we have talked as a team many times about how we're going to leverage the things we've learned and instituted from COVID as assets of this firm that we can use in our firm's resume for years to come. And I think that'll continue.
I think that's a key to a co-op, though. We're supposed to live with our members, good times, bad times, whatever that is, and then add confidence to how the customer owner sees our co-op.
Oh, 100%. And when I reference the assets of the firm, understand they own it. It's
Right.
their asset. So yes, it's to the
Yeah.
benefit of all, not just the owners. In fact, I would even say the customers as well.
I think people can have a hard time with tech when the road's straight ahead, because they just think it's a smooth sail, every gadget's coming, every gadget's gonna work, et cetera, et cetera. Where tech gets interesting is when there's a curve ahead, and you're saying, will it still be here? We're basically paid to keep the lights on.
In its truest form, absolutely.
24/7, no one wonders if end of day is going to happen, beginning of day is going to happen, we're going to be up tomorrow morning, we're not going to be up tomorrow morning. And we're a firm where at 8 o'clock tonight, it's got to be fixed by 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Correct. And more, at 8 o'clock, it's got to be fixed by 8:06. Because in the online world and those kind of things, we're out of time. So confidence is going to be a big thing to our young leaders. And I'm really looking forward to getting them where what happened to you and I after Y2K? Now, Jeff, you weren't here during Y2K.
I was not, but I was at a credit union.
Yeah, and
on
so what was
platform.
what's it like, when you're preparing for the unknown in a credit union?
Well, I think the difference is you talked about focusing internally on the core and the technology and the tool set and the adaptations. We had our 3-ring binder that was 18 inches thick by the time it was done. Mm-hmm. It was inventorying the 120 some different vendors that could have an impact on our day, from, will the time clock on the vault work when we open up in the morning and things like that, all the way down to, will the computer system be there? So I think it was more that experience and the documentation and the preparedness for it.
But you were warned in the credit union. I mean, you were warned to get ready for Y2K.
Absolutely.
How do you think credit unions did with this whole idea that tomorrow it's going to be a different day?
I think we have a 50-50. We have a lot of folks that rolled with it and a lot of folks that said, wait, stop, let's back up a little bit and then re-engage. I think your description of being ready for that curve ahead, I think some of the things as we talk about the development of our internal leaders and the things that I've learned in the 15 years, it's not just the curve ahead, it's, hey, we had a flat tire, how quickly can we respond to that, repair the flat tire and get back on the road ahead, and then to continue on. So I think for many of our organizations, it's been, how do we continue to service our members? What interaction do they have with us on bringing that along, and how are we successfully partnering with our credit unions to move through those days? Some shops have been very uncomfortable. Others have been very, very comfortable heading into it. And we've had a lot of good dialogue as far as some of those support roles that we could play to help get through.
You got a lot of young business developers.
We do, as a matter of fact.
And we have a lot of brands. People like, Asterix Intelligence, BizLink, Settlement, all of those brands. Most of those business developers weren't here during Y2K.
Absolutely not. Would agree with that 100%.
And so, and when we got into business development, that's more about the trains. They got to keep on going because we got to keep on selling. We got to get this going and this going and this going and this going. Now, some of those brands were in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. Data, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit with Keegan and Josh. But some of them were. How did they adjust? How did they adjust their day? Because this is really much harder on management supervision because they're trying to respond to the fact that as officers, we want things to keep moving. Just get down the road, get it down the road, get it down the road, get it down the road. Okay, no time not to consider anything other than getting it down the road. And then a staff, they're in that sandwich, all right? How do you think they're responding to Y2K?
I think on the COVID versus the Y2K step up in the event, we talk about train schedules all the time. They recognize that the train schedule had to evolve a little bit. The trains could not stop, but it had to evolve a little bit. And then I think there were multiple layers of responses. There were conversions, as an example, or EFT platform moves that the train schedule could adjust zero. It was set in place regardless of the environment or the event. Then there was the optional work that some credit unions stepped back on. How did we reach out and engage? How do we stay involved and engaged and push those projects forward? And there were things that just plain stopped for some institutions, and they said, get back to us in 90 days. Maybe the sales team that was supposed to be on site for events or otherwise. So I think it's been that evolution and recognizing which of the three, but we've had a lot of conversations about, hey, how do we stay engaged even though it's different, and how do we respect the train schedules that are set in stone versus those things that could evolve, and how we could have that positive impact for our credit unions, be wary of budget for Bob and his numbers, and how overall as an organization we just, each interaction we respected that there may be some change and how we could respond to that. I think the teams in general have done really well.
So the three of us, no matter what, our job is to develop talent. And we got to develop tech talent, credit union talent, and cooperative talent. I think that's one of the funny things about us. We're not just a tech firm. We specialize in cooperative business design. And that's why we have cuasterisk.com, we have all of those kind of things. And then we specialize in credit union operations. You know, do you really know what happens at a credit union, or you're not there, but can you plug into it? Can you get the sense of what's going on? Do you know what's happening in a static pool analysis right now with all these skip pays and all the things that are going forward? And then with tech, you know, tech has its own thing. You know, tech just wants to change for the sake of change, and so we kind of have to develop those people. So it was really funny for us to see them get thrown a curveball and watch them react. This isn't like I'm on my career track and I expected this, okay? Are you as confident as me about the team going forward? Yeah, both of you.
I absolutely am. I think this was, for a leadership development program, this is one of those times you can't teach and invent. They have to live through. And this was an event that allowed people to watch and see how people who've been through events like Y2K in the past can help steer, and they could get some comfort in that and then start to develop their own programs in their departments and their divisions and move those forward. So we do a lot of leadership development. We try and promote from within. We're really an organization that does that. And this is one of those things that has come. We're going to use it as the event that it was to help train the future leaders, just like we talked about how we cut our teeth in Y2K and learned a lot. These are people that will take that onto their resume and use it for years to come. And I think that we've done a very good job in explaining why we do the things we do, why the programs, why the documentation, and even our return to work and learning to work with sick people. And these programs, it'll allow our future leaders to understand how to develop programs down the road for events that we can't anticipate today.
We're number crunchers, data all the way around. Jeff, how did your team respond? You know, when we talk about coming back to work and people said, well, Randy, what if we get a tick in illness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we had to put a quantitative number on that. And they said, well, when would you fall back, or what would you do? And there were some shocked eyeballs when I said, well, I think about if we hit 15% of our staff or 45 people, then I would get worried. Other than that, we're just going to live right through it. We've had some good support from our teammates' family members through this too.
Absolutely. I think the team overall sees the flexibility and the need for that. And when one individual on the team needs to step up or can for another, we've seen a lot of that. So as you talk about the business development, the organizational development, I think even as a team, I've seen folks really step to the plate when they need to and how and where they can. I think if we back up even a little bit on your question on business development or leadership, we talked about our business development series where 30 to 40 credit union or team members, at CU Answers participated, and they were folks that were being pushed every week out of their comfort zone. So technical folks getting on camera like this and giving their elevator speech. What do? What do they do of value for the firm, et cetera? And then from there, adding new products and services in or retiring products and services to push what they were used to in a day. So I think a lot of the things that we've been doing in the last couple of years on development across the organization continued to lay a great foundation for the last 90 days. And that flexibility and that self-challenge to say, I need to look at it a little bit differently and I'm more comfortable getting out of my zone. Because we had a lot of folks for many years that came in and did A, B, and C and nothing outside of that. And I think as their exposure grows and their development grows, they're more comfortable as far as bringing that all to the table for our success.
Good transition. All right. Let's talk about succession a second. You know, we in 2020 started with an aggressive leadership and executive development program, all right? And we said basically we were going to carry that through for the next 2 years. And in 2022, we're expecting a CEO change, all right? What Jeff was talking about was this roster, and these rosters are interesting things. You know, I worked with several coaches on succession, and what they were saying is you don't develop one person, you develop many people from a roster of leaders who could step up to the times. And the problem is you really don't know the times, okay? A lot of times we think leaders make the time. The truth is the times call on people to step up and lead. So in 2022, think about this. We could have thought, oh, it'll be just like 2020, or just like 2019, or just like 2018. We now know that 2022, we're not sure what it's going to be. We knew we shouldn't have been sure ever. But now COVID makes you think, wow, we got to have people in the wings ready to do some things, measure the times, and then see who steps up. And that's a lot why you were saying, like, we've been challenging people to step up now. Kind of in an artificial way, right? We create exercises, we do all kinds of things to get them out of their comfort zone. But COVID came along and helped us out. Yep. All right. So if you haven't had a chance, look at this roster. All right. If we look at succession going forward, all right, there's a couple things. We're about to move from a leadership roster, okay, into executives who wish to throw their names in the hat. So our internal roster is going to continue. The work we're doing with that is through January 22, and there's 3 groups. There's 3 actual sessions where these employees are going through 6-month leadership succession for everything we're doing in leadership. But then I'm going to be pushing harder for them, for those leaders that say, yeah, you know what, Randy, I'd like a shot at your job. Any worries that's going to change who we are or what we're doing?
No, I think the strength, that muscle repetitiveness or challenge strengthens the entire firm. I see opportunities that everyone's stepping up, and as you said, as an internal candidate fills, there's other roles that open up. So as folks look to be challenged and develop, I see the opportunity for the entire firm just getting stronger.
But we're human.
Absolutely.
We compete.
100%.
And the 3 of us are going to have to do a really good job on sparking the positive side of competition and making sure that we don't have that thing in competition that can actually separate us. Now, interestingly enough, then between January of 21, which is coming up, and January of 22, then we're going to push for more people to come to the roster. And we're going to push that if there are people out there from our CUSOs that want to join the roster. Right now, everybody sees the roster process as being pretty internal. I want to now make it about the network. And then, in October of 21, just 10 months after we open it up to the CUSO community, then I'm going to push for it to be open up to the credit union community. Now, one of the things about CU Answers that's so important is that we deal with inconvenient truths, like me touching my mouth here, all you COVID watchers. Anyway, from the inconvenient truth of what we're doing, and so we don't shy away from that and see, well, I wonder if any credit union CEOs will apply for the job. I wonder if any credit union executives will apply for the job. We're trying to push this all right out front, very public, kind of get the network to talk about it and get a sense of, oh, that's old news. We're just looking for the best leaders from any community that we possibly can, and the board is ready to talk to them and look at that and all those other kinds of things. On the website, you'll find a study guide for our succession project. It's kind of a weird deal. We wanted to try something different. We set up a frequently asked questions website, and everybody from the network can say, I hope the board asks candidates this question. And then candidates can say, staff members, anyone, I hope the board asks this candidate this question. And then it's a study guide, because then I work with the people on the roster and literally say, Bob, how would you answer this question? So how do you feel about this, how public all of this is?
Well, I like how public it is in that you never know what kind of talent will apply. We, through the roster book, through just tracking our staff, say we know that we have different levels of executives, different stages of their careers, different life cycles. Anyone that expresses interest and demonstrates what their talents could be, what they could bring to the table, can be an eventual asset of this cooperative. So I don't look at it just as succession planning for the CEO's position. I look at it as succession planning for every position we have. So someone may come in and maybe they don't qualify for the CEO's job, or for whatever reason they're not selected. It doesn't mean they wouldn't be a perfect fit for my job when it opens, or a different job that when a different executive or manager leaves. So I think that succession planning in general, leadership development in general, again, will be an asset in our quiver that the cooperative will use for years to come.
Adding to our DNA, simply put.
Yep.
The succession planning is something that's on the table all the time. Everybody's looking to the future, building that muscle mass, whatever the case might be, to be ready for the next opportunity and to challenge themselves to step up when there is one.
People make natural assumptions, though, and probably you more than anyone, when you got promoted to president and COO, a lot of people made a lot of assumptions, and so you get a lot of questions.
I do get a few questions.
How are you handling that?
Well,
All right?
I'm comfortable with the questions and I'm comfortable with myself. So from that standpoint, it'll be a good part of our development for everybody and enjoying the dialogue, quite frankly, because it brings out things for me whenever anybody asks a question that I want to make sure I address publicly and openly.
And you're
enjoy the
both under
process.
contract?
We are.
And both under contract after I'm gone?
That is correct also.
All right.
We'll have a discussion before you leave about
Oh, yeah,
that.
you have extension, yeah, all right. I think it's an interesting thing. People will ask me all the time out in the field, they'll say, well, what should I work on so I could apply to be the CU Answer CEO in 2 years? And my answer is easy. I mean, I think they expect me to say, do a budget, work on a business plan, meet some market. And I think all of that's true. But the truth of it is, if you want to apply for this job, and I know I'm selling here a little harder maybe than I need to, but the thing that keeps people from getting jobs that they want is the confidence to ask. You want to know what you need to work on? You sit down and you say, what am I afraid of, and why wouldn't I ask? Am I afraid that I'd be embarrassed if I didn't get it? Well, how can you be a CEO if you're embarrassed when things don't work out? Things don't always work out. I'm not sure I understand how to run a balance sheet. I just told you who runs the balance sheet. I didn't run a balance sheet when I first got here. I'd never had a budget. I never had done any of those things. I knew I had a passion for those three things: tech, credit union operations, and co-op business design, how people come together as client owners and they get things done. So as I'm working with more and more people on the roster, I'm saying, what are your fears? Let's work on the things you're afraid of so that you simply say, I'd like a chance at this job. Then you can work out the rest later. All right. Whether you're on my staff, all right, whether you're another QSO executive in our network, okay, or if you're a CEO executive wondering about how you'd like to move to a QSO, I help. My job, my board's assignment was that I help. Please contact me if you have any idea that you'd like to jump over to a QSO and be a CEO. Now, for my board, this is about the most public I've been, and it's actually on tape. So they'll be getting ready for your calls too. So don't hesitate to actually track along on the website and what's going on with our board of directors and have a talk with them, all right? And you have a lot to think about. You have a lot of questions, all right? Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. And now we're going to kind of get into what I call the meat of the tactical plans and some things that are out there. I really appreciate you guys coming by.
Pleasure.
I hope to see you on screen more often and maybe on stage more often. Okay, we've got a couple more leadership conferences together. We need to figure out how those are going to work. All right. I appreciate Ed McMahon, Don Moore, for keeping us all in line, and I hope that you'll be excited to come watch episode 2. Take care. Have some fun.